So onto our main section today, which is our PSIcapture make the data disappear. So what we have for you today is a little bit of details around redaction capabilities in PSIcapture. So most of the people on the call already know that we have the ability to manually redact documents, so a user can see the values on the page and redact the information as they need. But we can also do an automated method as well, so looking for key metadata, redacting those, or putting a placement on a page at a certain location and redacting that component out of the page as well. So they're all functions that already exist today. But what we had was a customer in the financial industry that had a use case that stretched the redaction capabilities beyond anything that we had done before in PSIcapture. So they needed a way to process millions of documents, spanning decades, to identify key documents and educate the system on the fly with the flexibility of complex pattern matching, but by simply using the mouse. So we had to come up with a way to do that. They needed to also be able to be notified if a document that was expected to be redacted wasn't redacted. No redaction was applied, so they needed notification when that occurred. And the documents could have been anything. As you'd expect in the finance industry, documents can be quite a variety, and spanning over decades also created that complexity of there was very little similarity between what happened 20, 30 years ago to what happened in this day of age. The PSIcapture development team then sat down with us. We worked through building up a prototype and to really enable the power of PSIcapture that already had the capabilities to redact, but we wanted to expand on those. We came up with a way to do that, and the team then went away and built that new piece of code for us. Then what we did was sat down with the team and then went through the testing, and we now are delivering 7.8 to the market. So here we are today. So let's take a look at how easy it is to perform basic to advanced redactions in PSIcapture. So if you have any questions as we progress, definitely throw them in the chat. I do have Kieran on the side who can answer a range of questions. He's been one of the key people within the redaction process and prototypes that we've built up so far, so he can certainly jump in and answer those questions. But first up, what I want to do is run through a quick and simple method to show you some of that new features within PSIcapture. We've got a capture import method, and we're just going to do a basic redaction for the first part. So I'm going to bring these documents in as a user, a human. As most of you know, this was normally done as a service running in the background, so no one's actually watching the screen. But what we've got here is the ability to show you what's happening on the screen itself. So you can see here I've got a TFN value. Now this form could have been filled in electronically, it could have been written with a pen, it could have been written in green pen, it could have been written in a sparkly pen. So therefore you're not going to be able to identify the key values that someone's written on the page and identify if it's actually a TFN or not. So to increase accuracy, what we do is look for values around areas that would be potentially useful to do the redaction. So in this case, the statement of TFN is located on the page, but on a next document, you can see my tax file number is. So the different values that are being used on this form for the anchor position of where they got the tax file number positioned on the page. So each one of these is just a sample of the concept. And what we want to do is at runtime, look at this area on the page, identify what the value is that people are utilizing on their forms, taking that value, putting it into an index field, and then using that index field at runtime to do the redaction. Previously, we would have had to set up every single variation that we could come up with and hope that we hit the right thing. And as you can see above, we have the word tax file number or TFN. So that would actually do a really bad job, because what it would do is hit the document many times. You've got to actually locate it 3 times in one area. So then you're applying a redaction when you actually don't need to be. So in this case, let's go and push it through to the indexing step. So automatically we'll go through those documents and pull out the key values from the document, which is what we're looking for. And then I'll apply a redaction based on the values it's found. So you can see here we've extracted the data. you can see what we're looking at from a index value perspective. You can see that the index value is being populated, and that's from that location on the page. So if now I move it through to the redaction step, and as mentioned, this would all be normally automated. You wouldn't stop the process. It would just go straight through to the gatekeeper and through the end of the cycle. But in this case, we are showing you the full process here. So you can see on the page, this first one's identified the index value of tax number and applied the redaction accordingly. If we go to the next document, you can see that the redaction location has slightly changed, and the third one and the fourth one. So it doesn't matter what area on the page we're looking for, whether it's a credit card number, a TFN, whatever that key value is that you're trying to extract, you can extract it at runtime and then apply a redaction to the correct location on the page according to what data is being presented. As I mentioned, these could be handwritten scribble. It may not be readable. And therefore you can't use that logic to extract confidently and get your PCI compliance for your credit card information or any of those type of data security requirements. So that ends our basic overview of the new feature in PSIcapture. We're going to dive in, and I'm going to show you during a live event. You know what happens in live events, but we'll show you how we can configure in a live environment new documents that have never been seen before in a very complex and advanced scenario. So let's bring in the next configuration. And what I'm going to do is just bring in a couple of these documents first up, and then we'll process the rest of the documents. So we're just going to look at seeding the education process for PSIcapture, and we're going to use these two documents for that seeding. So in these two documents, we have one document that has a credit card number applied on that document, and on the next document, we have a bank account number that we want to redact. So a couple of different variations that we've got in the document set today to show you. So what I'll do is move it through to the next stage, which is just auto orientation. So we're going to look at making sure that they're positioned in the right direction of the page. If someone scanned them in upside down, they could get rotated. Then I'll go through a process called classification. So now we're going to identify the document. And if we know what the document is, then it will do the job that we're requiring it to do. In this case, it doesn't know what the documents are because we haven't seen these documents before within the job. So once it's done its job, it'll pop up a message saying we've got some issues and there will be a validation requirement. So on the screen, you can see here we have the index values in the middle. We've got the document over here on the right-hand side, and we're indicating the review message is, well, it needs to be classified. The reason why it needs to be classified is we actually have found a key word in the document. If I just zoom in on this area, you can see that PSIcapture is identifying the word account. So we've prepped the system to say, hey, look, for the word account number, credit card number, TFN, all those type of values that we're interested in, and see if you can find them. If you find one of our hits, then if the document hasn't been classified, then stop it for the user within the indexing area so they can educate the system of what you actually want to do with this document. If it doesn't find a keyword, the document won't stop. It'll go straight through the gatekeeper and migrate without any redactions, without stopping. So it's all about educating the system on the fly and building up the ability to do really accurate redactions according to what you're needing from the platform. So with 7.7, we did show you how to do some classifications on the fly. So we got the classification option up the top here. So I'll click on the plus sign. And so what I'm just going to do is type in what's the form ID, and then select the type of group. And in this case, we're looking for the account number. So I'm just going to put it into the group called account number. Now, what the user does then is use the mouse cursor and select key values on the page, which represents information that if you see this information on the page, then anchor into it and classify the document as this type of document. So it's going to call it upload transact based on finding the value that we've just selected here, which is financial advice specialist, and the word receipt. If you find those two words in these two locations, this is the map for categorizing this document as one of these form IDs. Now we have a whole range of different ways to do that, and I won't go into those today with you, but that can get quite more advanced as well. So once we've done that piece, we just click on save, and then we just go through the next stage. So we know that we've now classified that document, but we are now missing the redaction setting. So it's prompting the user for the next process to apply. So what we have here is we know that we have a couple of keywords in the document that we want to look at. And if we look deeper into this document, we can see that we have bank account name, bank account number. We also have the word number of payments across here. So I can't just use the value number. If I chose the value number, for example, it would then pick up this item and this item for redaction. So we don't want to do that. So what we want to do is we have a process which is called redaction data control. So if I'm finding the word number, I want to make sure that the word account is before the word number. So we can do a positive look behind. So this is becoming a little bit more advanced. It can be easier, and I'll show you an easy option shortly. But what happens now is I get to choose what type of redaction type. I want it to redact from the right-hand side, and just a small redaction will cover that value. I have the ability to choose different redaction types like medium, large, small. You can change that setting as much as you want as well and have more or less elements within that redaction type as well. But at the end of the day, this configuration has now just created a redaction rule. So what it will do is pass this value through to our redaction step, find that value on the page, and then apply the redaction type to that area. So dynamically, I'm just educating the system of what I want it to find on that page. So wherever it finds the word number, as long as it's got the word account before it, redact. So let's skip through to the next document, and we'll do it again. We've got this one as needs to be classified. This is welcome fee advice. So we'll just do some education on this document as well. So I'll just quickly run that process. And I know that that could be appearing anywhere in the top areas of the page. And that one can come up and get a double hit on that page. So once I've done that, and this one is a credit card. I can click save there. And now we're sitting back at our education of what we want to do within the document. So in this case, we can see that the word account's been found, but the word credit card number in this document is the one we actually want. So we come into our redaction anchor text. We can then use the mouse to cover over that keyword, and it will populate that value in that field for us. And in this case, we don't need to apply anything else. We don't need to look forwards or look behinds, negatives or positives. And we can then just go and say, it's right-hand small. And that's it. So really quickly, we've just educated the system. Next time you see this type of document come through, apply this type of redaction to it. So let's close this batch and we'll move it through to the redaction stage. And then we'll stop it at a quality assurance step so you can actually see the redaction that's been applied to the document. So let's just go and do the redaction process now. And you can see that we found the data and applied the redaction. And that in this case, both of those documents were applied correctly, and we're happy with the outcomes that we've got. So what I'm going to do is I'll close that and it will move through the process to migration. And then come in to kick off all those other documents, sample documents, and you'll see now when we apply a whole range of documents that have been found before and classified, it will now be successful. It doesn't matter with the positioning of those documents, it will be successful in extracting the data and applying the redaction according to our business rules that we just educated the system with. Now, if there were samples that we just put through that didn't have those keywords, they would go straight through the system and wouldn't stop. So what this is doing is currently PSIcapture has identified those documents in that folder So if you've scanned them in, or you're watching a folder, watching an email address, you can pick those documents up from any of those positions, and then it will process it through PSIcapture. Coming into the batch manager, you can see here we're currently stopped at quality assurance. So we're going to bring that in, and let's open that one up. So there are our 8 documents that we just processed. And what I'll do is just move that across, and we'll sort that so they're all together. And you see here, it doesn't matter where the information is positioned on the page. Once we've classified a document and educated the system of what we're wanting out of the document from a redaction perspective, it's then going through the process, finding exactly what we're wanting and applying that. So this is the other one. See, it's moving around up, down, left, right. It doesn't matter. We've been able to extract it. Now, for the technical people in the room, you do have the capability of being quite, I guess, focused and pinpoint accurate based on your redaction rule that you can build. So within that configuration, within the screen, you can easily do your click indexing process to build up that redaction rule. But if you know a little bit about pattern matching, you can be quite accurate in finding exactly what you're wanting, especially in those more complex scenarios where you have multiple areas on the page that you need to apply the redaction to. That completes the advanced option. And so we'll just move that through to the end. And I'll then bring up the migration location that we're migrating to. So in a moment, the system is currently doing all the OCR processes, and there they go. They've just dropped all the files into my output directory, and you can see here they're all redacted from the document. And although the document is searchable, the value that was applied on this document is now PCI compliant. Okay. So that ends the demonstrations for today. That covers off a whole range of the features and functionality. There's a whole range of obviously technical capability in the back of PSIcapture to get to what we've just shown you. And if anyone needs to get access to that profile for demonstrations or implementations, then just reach out to our support team, and they'll certainly be able to help you with getting access to that.